Hello everyone and welcome to the DevCast, a weekly podcast for all Roblox-related content and personal up-close interviews and conversations with some of your favorite Roblox creators. I am your host, Dev for Hire, and I am here with our co-host, Penguin Plays. Today we are here with BanTech, a Roblox creator known for his podcast known as Beyond the Blocks, as well as his skills in both scripting and overall game development. Please welcome BanTech. Start. Oh, and we are here with BanTech. Yeah, we were in this conversation at the current moment. We were talking about mobile devices, you say, Penguin? You said that you have an iPhone and you could just turn off the notification. The what?
Yes,
it's a little flip switch at the end, right?
Yeah, the top left of your phone. Yes.
Oh.
It's very handy.
There's battle between Apple and Android because I claim that mine does it as well.
Oh,
and,
wait,
I've
you...
got
a win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win, I guess. I mean, for me, it's so weird. Like, because I think on an iPhone, if you have to screenshot something, you have to press buttons. But I don't know why. But on an Android phone, I think you have to swipe. I don't know. Specifically for my phone, you just swipe your hand across the screen or something like that, and that's how it takes a screenshot. I'm so used to doing it the old way. I don't ever understand that. I mean, it's just weird because it's not conventional.
You wave at your phone.
Wave. It's like, hey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, you chose a OnePlus, I think, BanTech. Yeah, you have a OnePlus.
Yeah, a OnePlus. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of that kind of customization and stuff, like you said with the gestures and things. You can pretty much set it up how you like it. I'm not a big fan of being stuck in a box by Apple.
I mean, that's true. I don't like the restrictions from Apple. I mean, and I do think OnePlus is a good value for your money, I have to say. They've become quite expensive recently, though, I have to say. They've become very expensive.
They have recently.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the 5G. This is a few years ago now.
Oh.
But for the specs compared to the price, by far the best I could get. I mean, I've got the 8 gig RAM version, and I can play pretty much any Roblox game and stuff on it without any problems. And that was, I think it was about 500-ish at the time. I think for the same specs elsewhere, you'd be looking 700 plus. So it wasn't bad. It's now about 3-4 years old, though.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, I'm pretty happy with my phone at the current moment. I enjoy Samsung quite a bit. The phone that I essentially have is I think it's a Note 9. Yeah, it's a Note 9. It's got that little pen and everything. I've just been happy with it ever since. I also want to kind of move to an iPhone in a way, but the only thing that's stopping me is that there's not enough storage. I can't have 6 gigs of RAM. I just can't. It's just... I can upgrade to 512 gigs of RAM on my phone if I wanted to. I mean, that's almost a full terabyte, I think, or 2 terabytes. I can't even count. But it's insane, and it's a phone made back in 2018. That's exactly why it's my favorite phone. And I just don't understand why they don't do that anymore. It's just because I don't know if there's if we've hit a cornerstone in innovation or something, or if we have to go backwards. I mean, they made the iPhone more square now. I don't know if they... I mean, I actually kind of prefer that design. It actually looks pretty good. It's the iPhone 12, I think. Yeah, it's just an odd design, I have to say. It's like a piece of loaf of bread almost, just flat.
There's a massive flaw with the iPhone 12.
What?
They've made it tamper-proof, so third-party repair people can't repair it.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
So
really.
Yeah, so Apple can only repair it. So then Apple can make more money by only being able to repair their own phones. You can't go to your local
They've done that
repair
for a
shop
long
because
time.
they can't repair it.
But they've done it permanently this time.
They've been trying with a lot of stuff.
Sorry, what?
I was just saying that they've been trying with a lot of stuff in the past, haven't they? Of just making it so that you can only use theirs. I know that chargers are a bit dodgy with Apple as well.
Yeah.
If you use a third-party charger.
Yeah, they stopped selling the charger in the box.
Built-in obsolescence. They use built-in obsolescence. It's quite risky because they've been fined for it. Built-in obsolescence. Look at that. So
that's
probably I pronounced it wrong. But
you know what?
that's
Me
what
and Penguin.
do, and
yeah. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you, Penguin. I didn't really mean to.
Built-in obsolescence is quite scary because it basically means that you make something fragile so that it can be easily broken. So then you're going to have to get it repaired.
Yeah.
They have
so weird.
An actual.
No, it's just I want you to know.
Well, that's it. I mean, I got my phone.
Yeah. What about your phone? Yeah. Sorry. Damn it!
I was just going to say I got it back in interrupting everyone today. I got it back in probably my second year of uni, which is like 3 years ago now. And literally nothing has gone wrong with it apart from I've cracked the screen just in the top corner. But other than that, there's literally not a single issue. I probably wouldn't get rid of it for another few years if it weren't for that screen crack.
You know what? Penguin and I, I mean, I'm fascinated with phone designs. I'm absolutely fascinated with designing phones. I don't know if you know that about me, but I actually love designing phones on the Roblox platform. I've made so many countless all sorts of weird phones and stuff like that. I almost replicated a Samsung phone, and the best part is it was all with CSG. I did not make any of it mesh. I did not use any Blender tools or anything. Absolutely nothing. And me and Penguin are always thinking, we can always make a group like Apple on Roblox. I mean, but how the hell would that even work? Because we were thinking, you can make like a phone with like UI and everything. And I feel like the industry, the market there, on the platform just is not there. There's no cellular type of technology group, via phones and devices like a laptop and all that type of stuff. There's no competitor. There's no one out there on the platform that's doing it. So far, I think the closest thing we've come to is aviation when it comes to these phone things that you use and you tap them on the scanner. I mean, have you heard of that? I mean, like they're in airports and all that type of stuff in like the aviation community. That's how they're doing ticket systems now these days. They're just getting like a phone.
Okay, I've not seen them. I remember back in the day when it was just you bought a T-shirt and that got you through a special door. But that was probably about 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, well, that's 10 years ago. I thought you were talking about some special technology. I was like, what the hell, BanTech? What is this? You buy a T-shirt? It was like, but never mind. It's just one of those simple Game Pass doors things where you would just buy a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Not even a badge. I mean, not a badge.
That was the golden age of Roblox.
Yeah, you didn't even have to get a Game Pass. You just need to buy the shirt. Like, it wasn't even a Game Pass. You just buy a shirt, and if you have the shirt ID, you can go through.
You just have to... I think you just have to be wearing the shirt is the only thing that is a bit annoying.
That was insane.
I agree with that. And normally they were crap. They weren't that pretty. They just looked odd. And you would wear it, and the script would check the ID of the shirt you're wearing and go, open.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But what are you saying? They're using devices now, like phones and stuff.
Yeah, they're actually making physical phone
you have like a phone.
Yeah, Penguin, you can explain.
They probably like name it ticket. They probably would name it a ticket, or they could have a value inside of it that they change when you buy a ticket with the system, and you then hold the phone. Now in real life for the tube line. You can actually use credit cards on the tube gates now and actually pay with the credit card, an actual proper credit card, like an actual real credit card. And I think they've copied that idea, but they've used a cell phone. But there's a massive flaw. If they did this in real life and used your cell phone and your battery died, you'll be stuck at the airport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of your credit card with real life would be more reasonable because your credit card doesn't have a battery in it.
I mean, that's hilarious. But I mean, I think it's getting to the point now where there's a lot of nifty type of things now in technology on Roblox. People are getting to the point where they're just selling physical assets and that type of stuff now. It's not just scripts alone now. It's just physical assets and vehicles and all sorts of things. The technology, how do I say this? Industry? I would say not industry. Just the technology section of Roblox is essentially moving in a very strange direction. I mean, we all know aviation's essentially died back and forth, left and right, just over, and it's like somewhat trying to revive itself now with some sort of just a technology movement where people are actually like buying planes now. I think with like built planes and that type of stuff. There's all sorts of strange technological movements and that type of stuff, and it's quite, there's a.
What?
Oh, sorry. Are you going to speak? So sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think probably like 10 years ago or so, probably on the platform, it was still kind of, there was some real games, but there was still that aspect of just throwing a few models in a place and just kind of playing with your friends. And I think that's where kind of the aviation industry was, of just, you'd have a pilot, you'd have a bunch of people buy these very cheap shirts to get a ticket to the plane, and you'd just fly around for a little bit and then land again. Whereas I think now Roblox has got a lot to offer, and I think that just doesn't quite cut it anymore, and you've got to go a bit more creative and a bit deeper in terms of the experience,
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're gonna go, Penguin. Sorry about that.
Well, I started an airline group with a friend when it was quite near the beginning, and when I started, I was a novice at building and modelling and that. So I was younger, I had no idea what I was doing, and we got in someone who I can't name, unfortunately, to help us, and that's how I learned the studio. And back then, everything was blocky, everything was overscaled, and you would place a plane in, you would place in somewhat thing that looked like it, 3 model gateways connected onto your ugly building, and then you're off. And I mean, and 3 model ticket gates, and you're done. But then now, because the old ticket gates aren't good enough for the standards, because now Roblox is setting the standards higher with adding in mesh deformation and PBR, the standards are now skyrocketing. Everyone's over-engineering everything. It's becoming very
An industrial revolution. It's like a miniature one.
Yes, industrial revolution within Roblox. It is scary.
Yeah. I like the custom materials update that they're doing now. I think that's going to be insane. I was just trying to work it out the other day, and I mean, I have to say, it is a bit frustrating to work out from the start. If you manage to do it somewhat, it's quite interesting, I have to say. Like, I think it's going to change the way things look, especially planes and all sorts of vehicles and trains and all that type of stuff. You can essentially, you could add these really high quality looking materials. But the only downfall, I think, is it's just on meshes. You can only do it on a mesh, not on a Roblox texture on a brick. So I think that's kind of where that drawback is there. I mean, but I could be wrong. I don't think I've tried it on a brick yet, but I don't think it works on a brick from what I know so far. But it actually is quite cool.
I think with all these kind of updates, it's kind of moving towards something that you could use to like properly make a game. But I do wonder how many people sort of be left behind in the process. The people who are just casually doing it don't necessarily want to learn Blender and how to make these maps and stuff as well for these different materials and things. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to the kind of more classic blocky side of Roblox and the casual people who just put together what they can do from Roblox only without these external tools.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried, though, I have to say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm very worried because Roblox at the current moment, I could definitely tell that they're getting a little bit more, they're in a little bit more of a desperation for players in some, not players, sorry, developers in a way, if that makes sense. And to add all these extra steps that make the whole entire learning to become a developer process just a tad bit harder. I feel like it's kind of chasing away that market, all these future people that could be developers, because Roblox is not as simple as, it used to be. It took me years to, essentially master Roblox Studio as a child, I mean, the first creation I ever made was like back in 2011, where I essentially built like a small cruise, just a small little cruise of blocks. And it has changed so much. I swear to God, if I could make myself a child again, if I could make myself like 10 or 11 years old, and then I went onto Studio now, I don't think I would cope with it as well if I just never had that time, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, There are some exceptions, I have to say. There are some developers that do essentially defy those rules. I've heard some people who are like 6 months into development and they already kind of got their hands on things. But, I mean, I think it's starting to move to the point where it's like becoming Unity or something, or Unreal Engine. It's starting to bleed just a tad bit into there, and not many people are experiencing
I agree with
that.
that.
So. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
then
definitely.
I got a feeling I know why they're making these movements. Because Roblox loses a lot of their precious developers. Because once they've mastered Roblox and they know the boundaries of Roblox, where you can't get PVR, you can't get mesh deformation, there are two main ones currently which are required in any Unity or Unreal Engine game. I think Roblox is too worried about losing the developers that they have because they're not advancing enough. So what their solution is that how can we keep our developers? Because if they keep the developers, Roblox will make more money. And the only way Roblox is going to stay as a platform is it needs to make money.
Yeah.
So it's a
interesting,
situation.
isn't it?
It's a
Like,
situation.
I think, like Dev said, like with us being on the platform for a while, we've kind of we started out when it was a lot simpler, particularly getting a game running. Like, I think we could probably learn all the stuff you needed to be able to create some of the front page games pretty early on, because there just wasn't that much to them. Whereas I think as we've grown up with Roblox and Roblox has grown up alongside us, we've incrementally learned more and more bits have come out. But as you say, like coming into it fresh, like never seeing it before, it must be overwhelming, at least to the point where at the age when we joined, you wouldn't be able to join and just make a game at that age.
Yeah.
I think it's probably just aged up the kind of the entry level, such that, as you say, some people can join and in 6 months they're making like really, really good games. But I think you'll find that their age is probably a lot higher than where some of us started.
Where we started low down. And this is a problem when you have an aging community. Because how do you please the community as it ages up? It is very hard.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about all of these developers moving to Unity and Unreal Engine. Because they're the next step, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But then Roblox doesn't want that to be a step. Roblox wants to take it for themselves, which is understandable. If I was the owner of Roblox, I wouldn't want to lose the developers to another company.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's becoming a bit of a more complicated mess, you know. Being a veteran and just essentially watching the platform change, it kind of broke my heart at the start, you know. When things started to change, such as the logo and all that type of stuff. But, you know, I kind of got used to things now. I can understand what direction they're going in, you know. I don't know, it's just probably me being like a heart sore from, you know, just all the past memories and that type of stuff. Just, you know, enjoying the platform as a child, you know. Having no fears or worries or anything you have to really care about. And then now you're kind of in this position now where everyone feels like they somewhat have a responsibility to do something on the platform, to make their time with it. And I think now the pressure of that is more than ever at the current moment. You know, as more developers are as they become more developers, the pressure on the pipe essentially increases. There's a lot more competition, and necessarily I would say that's actually pretty good. You know, it's actually very healthy for a platform to have that. And I think maybe they're doing the right thing. But I do feel like sometimes Roblox is promoting, you know, developer creators, I don't know, in the wrong way. I mean, I wouldn't say their events that they host for developers are the best. I wouldn't really say that they're that good. I think some of them are actually very terrible, you know, from when I look at them. Because, I mean, of course, they're teaching the basics. But I don't think there's any fluidity and movement in how they do it. But I'm pretty sure, I think they release videos, I think, and all that type of stuff. To help, you know, just help developers, improve. And I think that's very important. You know, education is really key when it comes to creating a platform like Roblox and that type of stuff. Yeah, I think we are going to go into a short break at the current moment, Penguin. Yeah. We're going to be going into
we
a
got-
short sponsor break at the current moment, and we'll see you guys in a bit. Today's episode is brought to you and sponsored by our very own clothing brand, provided to you by Teespring. For more information, check our merch link in the description below. Oh, and we are back. So let's continue with our conversation. We're on a different conversation now. It's on something to do with star signs, right? Is that not correct, Penguin?
That is correct. Yes.
So you stated that you're actually nothing. You're not even Aquarius. You're just absolutely nothing. You just don't.
No, it says on Aquarius, the thingy. Hang on, let me just check this again.
Oh my god.
I want to make sure that this is accurate.
Meanwhile, I've discovered I was born in the year of the Earth Tiger.
The Earth
That's pretty
Tiger. What?
I think the only one cooler is probably a Fire Tiger. Sadly, I missed that one.
Oh shucks. I mean, I don't know what an Earth Tiger would represent, but okay. I mean, it's like the Earth.
I don't know what an Earth Tiger is.
Earth Tiger. Would come out of the ground just like rah.
So I've just done some more research,
Yep.
and this is quite shocking. So
Oh.
apparently, I'm going to go from good to horrible, which is in reverse in this. So apparently, I am very lucky. 4 stars in work, 5 stars in wealth, 4 stars in love, and 4 stars in health.
In hell.
Wealth.
Why
sorry,
do you
health
get a
and wealth. I
rating
got
for
them.
hell?
Yeah, right. So apparently, I'm going to live. My lucky colours are red, pale yellow, and black. Yes, I said it. Black.
Black.
Right. Lucky
Oh,
numbers
no.
2, 8, and 9. And guess what I am?
Oh, what are you, Penguin?
I hate this. I hate this so much. It's so inaccurate. Apparently, I'm a snake.
Oh. Well, maybe you are.
I'm a
Penguin.
golden horse snake.
Golden horse
Very
snake. I would never associate you with a snake, but okay. I mean, it just doesn't.
No. But maybe it doesn't mean snake in the way you think it means. Maybe it means snake
No.
in that I'm
No.
methodical.
No.
Because snakes, when they hunt their prey, they are very slow, and then they get it. You know, I don't want to be too graphical, but bam,
Right.
and that's why I'm really lucky because I get everything.
Wow, you just get everything. That's just all it means.
I don't get the weight off my chest, but I think
You
that's
don't get
another
5
story.
stars in love, Penguin. You're not really good at love, aren't you?
I get 4 stars, 4 stars, 1 less.
Ah, God, too bad.
I do wonder if
Sorry.
I do wonder if the snake and a penguin would get along well or not.
You know what? They would, because they wouldn't be able to have contact with each other. So they would, because a snake would die if they went to the Arctic, and if the penguin
Wow.
went
Penguin
to
would die.
it dies. So I think it's a win-win.
Well, you say that some of them die, but like you can get penguins in UK zoos.
Oh,
So I
Oh,
don't know.
fuck
I
it.
think you can get
True.
them when they're not in the Arctic.
you guys
Fuck.
have zoos in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, how many?
Yeah, I've just thought about that. There's about 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Alright. South Africa probably only
There's
has one.
quite
Yeah.
a few with penguins in them.
Yeah.
But then the Isle of Wight has one, but I've never been.
Oh.
I've
Okay.
been to a few big ones. I've been to like safari parks, you know, the ones you can drive through.
Yeah.
Not quite the same safari as you might find in like South
Well,
Africa, but
That's what I would like
you know.
to do.
Yeah.
Stay around at your house, Dev, and then we'll do the safari.
You know what, BanTech, where would you find a safari park in the middle of the UK? I'm just so confused.
well, they just it's not like proper safari parks. It's literally like they've just got a few enclosures, and instead of you walking around the zoo, you're basically just driving through it. And they just try and make it match the habitat of the animal that's there, but not necessarily convinced how happy the animals are.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
So is it like a
don't
game
really
park
like
with like
Jurassic Park,
cardboard
but
cutouts all over the place? You just drive around looking at these cardboard cutouts of these animals and stuff. Wow, look at the penguin, and then it just falls over. It's like,
Where did I go? I think it was Longley Park. I can't remember where that in the UK. I've been to Longleat. all of the animals were hide away. It was a cold, grey day, and like you couldn't see anything. I think you could see the rear end of a rhinoceros off in like the distance, maybe about a kilometre away, and that's literally all we saw the entire day. There was meant to be lions, tigers, all sorts of stuff there, but
so that's all you saw the entire day. I mean, what a view, I have to say.
All you saw was just the dirt track from your truck that you're driving.
Yeah.
And I saw a rhinoceros ass. I mean,
just off in the distance.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of need binoculars to make out if it actually was a rhinoceros or if it was just a grey rock in the distance.
A grey rock.
You know.
I have to, yeah. I mean, I feel really bad because, you know, they're really highly endangered here. They're the most protected animal in the whole of South Africa. So, you know, there's always poachers and stuff like that trying to get them and that type of stuff. I mean, it's quite horrifying. And then they, like, try to chop off the horn and essentially just kill it just for the horn, I mean. And then they just
it's just a toenail. That's all it is.
It's just a giant toenail on top of your head. I mean, I can't imagine anything more annoying, I have to say. Imagine having...
Imagine bring it back. Your toenails.
Oh, sorry, BanTech?
Yeah. It's alright. I was just going to say, to bring it back to Roblox a bit, I think there's a museum that was shown on the Learn and Explore store where they made a few models of different animals, and I think they had a rhino there and had a plaque about it. But it got me thinking, like, I've not seen any kind of zoos or safaris on Roblox. Rather, they're maybe not as popular enough to you know, get up to the front page and things like that. But that'd be pretty sick, wouldn't it? Having like animatronic kind of style animals.
Well, you see, here's the issue with that. As you know, most of all these groups, I mean, they actually do exist. But the only issue is they are essentially group games. They're owned by groups, and of course, as you know, just like these community-like group things don't get very far because, you know, of course, they don't really get the money or, you know, how to say this, just all the support they have, or maybe even, you know, even the development experience to essentially make it up to the top, or even optimize their games to make it a front-page game. I definitely know. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily true. But me and Penguin essentially both theorize that Roblox does essentially pander to certain front-page games. I mean, you have to admit, I mean, if you look at the size of Adopt Me, it's absolutely ginormous. I mean, they have to have some sort of custom servers for that. I mean, if you're keeping about if you're keeping about like 400,000 players in your game 24/7, and the max peak height often is about 700, and then even, you know, just even further beyond that, that's on a rare special occasion, maybe on a good event, you have to have like a special server. I mean, it's crazy. I think especially for like a large mass-scaled games, I think that, you know, certain games like that on the front page, I think they also somehow get a custom server. But like I said, this is all just speculation. We're not exactly sure if that's really necessarily true. So, I mean, I don't know if you...
It probably would be quite intense if you had like moving animals and stuff. I suppose it might struggle, without some kind of beefed up server.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
there's another issue.
Yeah, Penguin. Sorry.
There's another issue. To get on the front page, your game has to be dependent on user experience and what you can do in a game. I mean, if I actually BanTech, your BanTech Systems is on Stepford County Railway, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that game is great because even though it is group-based, you can actually be a train driver just by joining the group, and you just become straight a train driver, and you can just drive a train away because you've got the steps in place to make sure that they don't go over the speed limit too much. They stop at the traffic lights and things like that. The game then becomes playable from all angles for any player. And if your game cannot have that capability, you then don't rank anywhere near the top mark of even seeing the front page once. And this is where Roblox's limits are set. If your game can't keep the player indulged, or the experience is not good, then you don't stand a chance. And this is where we're at. Sort of, as we were speaking earlier, originally it was never like that. It's now, the bar is so high.
It's absolutely insane.
It actually scares developers.
It's it's a question of game discovery, isn't it? Because everyone's always talking about that quite often. It's kind of, if you've already got a following, if you've already got people, possibly even just a big group of it, like a community, then at least you can get people into the game, and the more people you have playing the game, sort of the more likely you're going to show up on these kind of sorts and stuff. How you go from nothing to that is now quite a challenge, I think.
It is,
because even with Setford County Railway, we've built it with people who've been in the train community on Roblox for quite some time. So at least they can, they've got friends in the community, they've got existing groups, and groups will come and discover the game and things like that. I think if you're, if you don't have those connections and you're just trying to start out fresh, it might be quite hard.
It is.
Well, you're finding your fan base and finding the community that wants to take it. And most of these people go for niche things. And the problem is, as great as they're small and they're unpopulated with loads of competitors, finding the community or just a kickstart without spending ridiculous amount of money on ads is very difficult. So I have a lot of sympathy with all developers who have to put up with this, because it's a marathon for something so simple.
Yeah. I worked on I think, Penguin and I were part of this certain studio, and we essentially made a game, and I have to say, it is a lot of knowledge that you have to have when it comes to having a front page game. There's just a lot more things at play. A lot of people think, okay, well, I'll just make a game and it'll get to the front page and, it'll work out that way. But sometimes you also have to take certain things into consideration. Sometimes you have to take into consideration the Roblox algorithm, how ads are spent and things like that. There's a lot of things that you have to think about. You have to often think about paying people, and how you pay people individually. It's all about, you also have to, talk about trust, the trust that you have with individuals. The best thing to often do, I think, is to actually formulate and essentially a document someone has to sign when you're going to have to hire them, essentially saying, well, I hired you. If you leak any assets, well, that's on you. You signed this document. We have evidence. There's like so much more other things that have to come into play. Yeah, and you also have to worry about certain things like packages that often crash and break. Games often feature packages. And, sometimes I wouldn't say the Roblox servers are essentially the best. And sometimes there's massive downfalls on Roblox servers, and then sometimes that just bricks your game. I mean, it depends on what type of game you have. There's a lot of things that can affect your game. All sorts of things, whether it's physically, metaphorically, and not to mention your own mental health. Essentially your own mental health and how you handle that. So, it's a long journey, I have to say. It's very...
Yeah, I think it's a very delicate balance, isn't it, of all those things?
Yeah. It's
like, kind of weighing up the pros and the cons at each corner.
Yeah, it's like a scale, Just can't disrupt anything. I actually checked on one of your episodes on Beyond the Blocks. You said, one of the things was keeping motivation on a game and project. I just want to ask, what do you actually personally recommend to help prevent demotivation for creators? I didn't exactly watch the rest of it, but what do you actually recommend to stop demotivation when it happens?
I think one of the things, first of all, I'm struggling currently anyway with some of my projects, just because I'm still at uni, in my last year of uni, and that obviously takes up quite a bit of time, and so sometimes if there's things like that that get in the way of you doing a project, people who've been following me for a while know I'm working on a game called Skylines. I've been working on it for a while now, and kind of things like university and the other people who I'm working with being tied up with their own stuff in their own life and things like that. The modeler I'm working with got into the UGC program, which is great, but it's very, time intensive in terms of getting stuff out on a weekly basis. And the more kind of those blocks that get in the way, it's quite easy to just kind of give up and just be like, well, it's never going to happen, never mind. So I think for me, the thing that keeps making me be focused and work well and work quickly. Like if you're staring at something for a while, you lose motivation on it.
Yeah.
But if you keep shifting around, doing like little mini projects here and there, I find that then makes me more motivated when I return back to like my main project.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things I did that was quite a big kind of distraction, I suppose, was a quick little game called Cube Puzzle, and I made that in about 3 days. And that was just a side project, a little challenge for myself. Can I make a game where all you're doing is solving a Rubik's Cube? It's just like a virtual Rubik's Cube, basically. Nothing special about it. But obviously there's some challenges that come with that, and also it's a bit different to the normal stuff I do. I think your side projects have to be a little bit different, otherwise you're just doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
So I think things like that are what motivate me, because you solve problems, you learn some new stuff over there, you go, oh, this would be really cool if I use that back on my main project. I'm going to bring that knowledge back over to it.
You start smaller projects, and then you
kind
of combine them, I'm assuming, in that type of way. Like smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Like
projects.
Combine the learning at least. Yeah. So I'll probably update Cube Puzzle at some point in the future. There's some things that I think could be improved on it, but it served its purpose as something to re-motivate me. Because at the time when I did it, I was just struggling with all my projects. I just wasn't doing anything. Struggling with uni work. I just needed something new, something fresh, something that wasn't going to be a long-term commitment. It was just going to be a quick little burst, get it out there, show people what I've done, have a completed product, and that just motivates you. I can complete stuff. I can make games. Let's go back and take that learning to the main project and just do it.
I actually love that idea.
Good.
Any thoughts, Penguin?
Yes. BanTech, looking at your creations and your type of groups and projects that you've taken on, would you class yourself as a fan of trains?
Interesting
within
question.
the trains community? As a
I
hobby,
think
maybe?
A lot of people who follow some of our dev streams and stuff for SCR will know that I'm actually not that much of a train fan at all.
Oh.
What I'm a fan of is physical systems. So trains might fall into a category. I don't think I'm any kind of expert on them. The only reason I do that particular game over any other one is just that my friend started it and now it's just grown, But I had a bus simulator way back in the day. I'm interested in planes. My degree is aerospace engineering. So I'm just interested in systems. I think vehicles are cool. But instead of diving really deep on a specific thing like trains, I'm more kind of broad. If it's got a control system, or if it's got engineering, or if there's some physics involved, then
we're going to jump on it.
Yeah.
So you really like physics. So what's your opinion on Roblox physics then? Because sometimes that can have its U-turns.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things that brought me to Roblox in the first place, which is quite interesting. Because I was always interested in physics and maths. I came to Roblox searching for a sandbox game where I can make some cool physics, blow some stuff up, connect some things together into a system, have a car that pulls along the trailer, just things like that you can just build yourself.
Yes.
And so the Roblox physics system is what brought me to it. But yeah, the quirks, when it gets to really complicated stuff, you do have to augment quite a lot of it. And another side project, another one that I'm working on is a bowling game that I recently showed on my Instagram.
That's
and that is interesting because I've attempted it twice before, and both attempts have failed. And the reason why I've sort of abandoned them before they even got very far along in the project, because the physics system just didn't do what it needed to do for the pins and the ball hitting the pins. Either it would have to be on the server, in which case there was some lag with it, or
Sorry to interrupt.
sleeping and it didn't react
Sorry to
properly.
interrupt, but we have to have just a short sponsor break. But Thank you so much for that, BanTech. I really didn't want to interrupt you, but we'll be back. Yeah, we'll see you all in a bit. Need clean, comfy and stylish-based Roblox clothing? Well, we have just the right options for you, with our very own merchandise, provided from Teespring. The DevCast merchandise clothing provides the perfect level of comfort, suited for your very own development needs, whether outside or inside. If you are interested in purchasing, check out the merch link in the description below. Yep. Okay, and yeah, we are back. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, BanTech. But anyway, we were on the topic of physics. So as you were saying, you were interested in physics, and you were showing us, you were talking about your bowling pins that you essentially made, and all those type of details. Well, can you essentially elaborate, because we're quite interested in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main problem with this bowling game idea that I've had for a while is just that the physics wasn't reacting the way you need it to.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have encountered weird quirks with physics. They've improved them over time. Like they are improving it. Robots are actively working quite hard on it, but there's still some little quirks. And I think 10 pins being hit by a ball and interacting with each other just doesn't quite work yet properly on Roblox. So my third attempt now, working on the lanes, it will be called, I've basically had to augment the physics system, and what I do now is when you bowl and you release it at a particular angle and a particular speed and all that sort of stuff, it now calculates the entire next 10 to 20 seconds of what will happen with all the pins and the ball. Including things like friction on the lane and like spin and all that sort of stuff, and then it basically just plays it back to you. So I have had to avoid using the Roblox physics in that particular case.
I have to say, I wouldn't say Roblox physics are necessarily the most reliable. I have to say they're a bit primitive. I think they can improve on a lot of things. As we've seen, certain things just go wrong. Roblox has also messed up physics a couple of times. They've ruined certain projects even by changing some physics settings, and a lot of old projects don't essentially work anymore because of all the physics changes.
Well, yes,
and all that.
They removed the motor. They removed the motors and they changed them up, and then they changed them to servos because they removed the old motors for servos and hinges and things like that. And it's just. They've just changed it up, and the thing is, I feel bad for the people who watch the old Roblox videos as inspiration, because the old Roblox are really simple, but then they watch it, and then they realise that everything they've just watched doesn't work.
Non-existent at this point.
This is the problem with change.
Yeah.
Because whatever was done 5 years ago, a very small percentage of it can't be done.
Yeah.
And I feel it's misleading.
But for some systems, it depends what it is. If it's just like a car driving around and it's not the core of the game, it doesn't matter too much. I think when it comes to something like bowling, for example, where you want everyone to experience the same physics that you've just had, but you also don't want delay of waiting for the server to do the physics and then, have it look really choppy on the client and things like that. Like, everything needs to be synced. Everything needs to be perfect. It needs to be predictable. You need to be able to improve your bowl and consistently, achieve the same score for the same release and stuff like that. So I think in cases like that, and also like our train game, Stepford County Railway, even on that, I've had to augment some of the physics as well. So anything where it's complex or essential to the game, I think it's just not quite there.
Yeah.
It's just not where you need it to be.
That's unfortunate. So when you augment it, do you use tweening or C-frames? Or something completely entirely different?
So for the bowling game, for example, I just literally that C-frame that is. So it's done it in my own kind of physics system, recorded a bunch of frames, and it just plays those back by changing the C-frame of the pins and the ball for a bunch of render frames. But the Stepford County Railway one, that actually uses like a body position and a body gyro. And the carriages aren't actually connected, and each carriage is moved independently. and the position and the rotation from that is what's been augmented, and there's no collisions at all. You could run through the train if you wanted to, for example.
That's quite interesting.
While it's running, we obviously have collisions when it comes to at the stations and things like that. But there's no collisions with the ground or anything like that, or any of the scenery.
So essentially, that's like
decoration.
It's like the bread and butter of essentially like a carriage. Just essentially how the whole mechanism essentially works when it comes to maybe just having a moving carriage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing with Roblox physics, and I think where it falls down is it's quite a general purpose thing, which, as I say, for games where it's not the core of the core mechanic of the game, it's perfect. It does what it needs to do. It doesn't get in the way. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. That's fine. Where it's the core of the game, I don't want the train to be comparing its collision against all the buildings it passes.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be comparing its collisions against every platform you get too close to. If we've accidentally placed a sign slightly too close to the train, I don't want that to break the whole game. It's unnecessary processing, and it's stuff that ends up slowing things down for the client, for the server, whoever, especially when you've got a train. Because Roblox isn't too bad when it's one car or one carriage or whatever. When you're linking, 6, 7 of these together, suddenly it does actually get quite intense if it's comparing collisions and they're all pulling each other either by rods or hinges or however they're connected.
Yes, and then times that by how many players or train drivers, and you've got an awful lot of parts.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's all about simplifying it down, The bowling game, for example, all I care about is the ball, the lane, and the pins. There's no need for it to worry about collisions with anything else, because all I care about is the ball, the pins, and them hitting the lane. So, again, really simplified, really quick code, and it works out where all of those things are going to be for the next 10 seconds in about 1/100th of a second.
That's impressive.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty quick if you simplify it.
But then I feel bad for all beginner people to Roblox coming in as developers, going back to that, because you have to do all of these complex maths to get something to drive the core of your game, when they give you physics that is very primitive, and then you then have to resort to using tweening or C-frames, which a lot of scripters get it, because that's one of the first things they learn is after functions and ends and all of that, the basic if statements and loop scripts. They go straight on to tweening. So from a scripter's point of view, that's fantastic. But the problem is most builders and modelers will be still referencing off of the actual general physics. So it's like a language barrier with development teams because of
I was agree with that. That's also
not very.
But just don't forget now. Just remember, things are also shifting more now towards mesh, and using all different types of foreign type of stuff. That's very foreign to Roblox. We don't build trains, or we don't build things as much as we use mesh now. And I've been hearing that maybe sometimes physics also acts a bit weird with certain meshes as well, apparently. So it also makes things certainly challenging, different shapes and stuff like that act differently to certain, just all different types of things, especially with Roblox physics. I mean, I tried to push around a mesh crate and it went absolutely insane. It stuck my body inside the crate and then flung me off into the distance, and I died. So, there's definitely a challenge with that, especially when you.
And there's another problem.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, sorry, BanTech.
Yeah.
Go on, BanTech.
I was just going to say, I think with the bowling pins, I've had to simplify those because you can't use them as a mesh. Like the actual, even my system that I've made treats them as a cylinder and a sphere or something. Simplify the geometry because you can't rely on what gets generated from those meshes.
No, you can't. I mean, so have you actually got a mesh bowling pin, but then you put an invisible block that's welded to itself with a cylinder inside of it? Is that what you've
interestingly, if I was relying on Roblox physics in early things, early version of the system, that's exactly what I did. Now that I'm doing it myself, don't even need that. I can basically do it kind of virtually, I suppose. So from the mesh in my system, I treat it as, you know, cylinders and spheres and stuff, but they're not actually real because it doesn't need to be a physical object if I'm not using Roblox's physics. But it's a similar concept.
The language barrier,
you know,
between
the mesh being, exactly. But the mesh being the appearance and you having to then create the collisions yourself. It's all of these little barriers, I think, exactly as you're pointing towards, like all these barriers that are stopping beginners from necessarily creating the best stuff that they could create.
Yeah, because all of these little niche pinpointers that improve the game or improve the script or improve the performance aren't spoken about or broadcasted.
You know what?
Often.
There's actually
and they're
one
hard
thing
to understand.
Yeah, there's actually one thing that's not spoken about. Me and Penguin, you know, I mean, you know, Penguin and I. Sorry about that. You know, we've actually discovered something that no one ever talks about when it comes to mesh, and it's actually the most important thing when it comes to talking about, you know, mesh and actual collisions when it comes to mesh, is there's a small setting which you have to set in order for the accuracy of the surfaces of the mesh to be represented there. If that makes sense? It's essentially, you have to switch it from like a setting to precise convex position, I think. And that essentially helps you
I think that's it.
To get a better detection on the actual mesh itself. And no one ever tells you about it.
There's a drawback to that.
Like, have you ever made a union?
There's a drawback.
And then you suddenly walk, and then you're walking over this invisible part. Essentially, you could also undo it with unions, right? Have you ever came across that issue? Where you have something like a complex mesh or a union, and then somehow you just walk into an invisible part, and you don't understand that you can't walk through it. Like, have you ever came across that?
Oh yes, it's an absolute classic, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's an actual setting that you can set to stop that, and it undoes all that, and you can touch and interact with meshes normally, but no one ever talks about it. It's just so frustrating. I mean, it took us forever. I think it was like probably 20 years in advance or something. I'm not really sure. Yeah, sorry, BanTech.
We had this problem for years.
With the caveat, it comes along with the caveat of, you know, whether that hinders performance on a large scale, and are beginners necessarily equipped to be able to deal with the performance? Because I assume if there's more complex geometry, there is
higher
more,
poly count.
You know, computation, first of all, to generate it. Yeah. And exactly, a higher poly count when it comes to the actual collision system.
That makes so
more
much
points
sense.
to check and stuff like that.
Oh, and that's what they're trying to do.
So
they're essentially trying to calculate
it,
to make it more friendly for the game, essentially. I think it's like more like a budgeted, you know, invisible poly walls and stuff just set up that you can't really see. And then until you essentially make it precise, you essentially increase the polys. So I never knew that. As you were going to say, Penguin, sorry about that.
But I don't agree. I don't agree with that because because you can have a really let's go to like a facility game where you have hallways and you want a mesh hallway, a really simple, quick mesh hallway, and you union it and it creates an invisible wall through the whole hallway. You've just created a site or a game that it's got to do with hallways or anything, and you've just unioned your whole hallway. It looks smart, and then you go to test your game, and you find an invisible wall. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to ununion everything and spend hours messing around when you could have just switch a switch in properties. Yeah. This is where...
It's true. The system's
where
probably not the best it could be.
I found that problem for years, and it frustrated me because it felt like I couldn't do what I wanted to do with low parts with unions.
Yeah.
And I feel like even though it is an advantage, but for anything that needs to be hollow, it's a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree, yeah. If you're going to have the simplified version as the default, it needs to be a very smart system in terms of how it does simplify it to avoid those kind of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it needs to be more broadcasted. It isn't.
What are your thoughts on unions, though? Do you believe mesh creates more lag than unions, or do you think unions create more lag than mesh in terms of, you know, overall poly count. Personally, I think it's maybe unions, because, you know, one time I made a union, and Penguin and I put it in a blender, and essentially there was double vertices all over the place, essentially just doubled. And we think maybe that could be more, I don't know. Sorry?
Yeah, I don't think unions are necessarily that well optimized. Like, I think you'd be better off with mesh if you know how to use blending. But obviously that's a big if, because I still am not great at Blender. I've never just really put in the time to learn what I'm doing in terms of 3D modeling. And unions is just really straightforward, isn't it? You just create the part that you want. Say you want to cut a part out of it. You just do that, you place it there. You don't have to worry about vertices and faces and are they pointing inwards or outwards and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's just really, really straightforward. So I think when it comes to really basic stuff, so if it was literally a square with another square of it, then I will do it with the union. If it's more complicated, then I'll probably get someone in who knows what they're doing with Blender.
Yeah, it's a job done. Yeah.
Yeah. All sorts of games are going.
The thing with both of them.
Yeah.
The thing with both of them that I think is also probably not well known is that both require an extra network request. They're actually quite similar. Unions almost create like a mesh and store it on Roblox. And so both of them actually require a network request. So sometimes, depending on what it is, I will stick to primitive parts as well. So again, if you wanted to make an archway and your choice was 3 parts, a union, or a mesh, I'd probably stick with the 3 parts if there were 3 really simple parts, because there's that many network requests in something like Stepford County Railway that you're already waiting for hundreds of assets. It's already, you know, wasted all your mobile data on your phone. You don't want to just add to that unnecessarily. So it's a balance. I think it depends really what you're making each time.
Yeah. And with part surfaces, apparently there's, like for example, for a basic brick, there's only about 2 polys on each side, apparently. There's like 2 surfaces on each side, essentially, on in terms of actual, you know, like Roblox bricks, apparently. Because now, you know, they're essentially unifying everything in mesh in all sorts of ways. I've actually noticed that even some of the old Roblox meshes, if you look closely, if you go back and actually scale some of those old Roblox meshes, what Roblox did is, instead of making them like an invisible part with a mesh that you can essentially scale to any size you want, you can actually stretch old Roblox meshes now at the current moment. I don't know if you know that, but I just actually noticed that the other day. But yeah, I think that that is quite interesting how, you know, like, you know, it's a lot of, you know, you have to trade in certain things for other things. For example, like I said, if you union, you likely will get double-sided, you know, surfaces and stuff like that, increasing your poly count. But at the same time, you could also build with bricks, and maybe you can actually get less polys, ironically, just because the surfaces are less. And, you know, the blocky style is just the classic style, and everyone knows that style. You know, I think I think that's also quite cool, like how you could just essentially trade that. You know, it all depends on essentially what your game is. But I don't know, I'm also quite worried about all these new mesh assets. You know, I feel like as we start using more mesh and stuff like that in worlds today and stuff like that, I feel like it really is going to hinder a lot of performance, especially like when you see on Twitter, you see all these people like, whoa, that's realistic, is that Roblox? Wow! But then you look closely at the picture, and it's just a skybox. Yeah, it's just a skybox with a few mesh components. You know, it's quite, I find it so depressing, you know, because it's like, where's this next gen? You know, we're still somehow hitting walls. We can make things look good, but we can't do it with actual, you know, good processing or any, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's, you know, I don't know whether it's Roblox servers. I'm not necessarily sure what they really need to prove. Maybe it's just the editor itself, the operation system probably. I'm not sure, or you know.
I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think if you think about it in black and white. Okay, let's look at a gaming console, right?
Yeah.
A gaming console is designed to run high-quality games.
Yeah.
They have good processors, good RAMs. Now, a kid playing Roblox, what is he going to have? Then, you know, their mum or dad ain't going to buy a gaming console for them to play Roblox on. They're going to have a mobile phone, or they're going to have a cheap computer for maybe £100 if they're lucky.
That's true.
If your game cannot run on their cheap £100 computer, they're not going to play your game.
Yeah, they're not going to.
Simple.
Just...
Because they can't run it. Yeah. So unless you go to their specs, we're out of the reach of our audience, and that is a massive issue.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's one of the things that I think a lot of people forget, particularly in the comparison. You know, Roblox versus Unity versus Unreal. Whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the thing that keeps me on Roblox is one that although game discovery could do better, we have got from nothing to a game that's got nearly 18 million visits without spending anything on advertisement.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think you can't necessarily do elsewhere. You've also got multiplayer by default. You don't have to think about it. Everything's just already multiplayer. You can make a single-player game if you want, but it's multiplayer. The networking's done for you. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about customer service. You don't have to worry about security for accounts or anything like that. Like, all that kind of stuff is done. You've got the servers. You don't have to worry about the cost for those. You've got data storage that is available for people who want that. And you've got something that's available on mobile, tablet, console, and PC. Yeah. Now, the compromise of that is that you've got something that's available on mobile, tablet, console, and PC, which means that you don't have the control over the device that people are playing on. And I think Penguin made a good point with consoles, is that it's not just that it's got a good CPU or a good GPU, it's that it's got a consistent one. So if I make a game for a PS5, I know that everyone who plays that game will receive a very, very, very similar experience.
Exactly. And that's the problem with Roblox. There's no consistency.
Exactly. So, you're constantly fighting, either making an incredibly detailed game to satisfy, the pro PC gamers, in which case it's crashing on everybody's mobile device. Or you make it really, really good for the mobile device, in which case the PC gamers are like, why does it look so basic? Why is everything, this kind of low poly style and whatever? Where's the incredibly detailed stuff that Roblox keeps promising us? So you've got this kind of this constant balance of who do you want to upset and what platforms do you want to make your game available on. And I think it's quite tricky for Roblox to then bring out all these new features. The new lighting system, for example, looks incredible, works really well on my computer, but I know that when they put it on Jailbreak, it didn't work very well. Like, they had to roll it back. A lot of people were having problems with it, particularly performance-wise. So it's that constant balance of you've not got consistency, you've not even got the knowledge that they're all on PC, and if you do choose to narrow down your game to only release on PC, you cut out, I think, more than half of the market of Roblox.
That's true.
So it's tricky. It's tricky.
Me and Dev had a conversation, and we noticed that Roblox actually ranks games better when they have cross-platform mobiles, tablets, and things, because you get a bigger audience coming to your game because you're multi-platform. And this is the problem, is that if you limit your audience, you're making your game less rankable to Roblox's algorithms to get on the front page. I mean, what front page games do you see that aren't cross-platform?
I mean, I feel kind of bad because the small creators, of course, not really often think about things like mobile. Because, of course, small creators often focus on their small little projects, essentially, whether it's like a little miniature horror game or, whether it's like a physics-based thing, But sometimes I also think mobile also poses a challenge for some smaller creators. You know what, ironically, I think, is that some smaller creators, because some of them actually have more vast knowledge than people who have larger games. I think sometimes some of those type of people often tend to overcomplicate their game, so much to the extent in which they essentially create a mess for themselves. There's a lot of scripters that often essentially put roadblocks in front of themselves because, they overcomplicated the script. There's a lot of people who do overcomplicate things. And I think, also it comes with simplicity, especially when it comes to, essentially you know, allowing your game to have that compatibility with mobile and all sorts of other things. The more simplistic your game is, the more likely you know, you will be able to get those platforms really easily. I mean, some games are really good and they didn't even have to change any of the controls or anything. They just had to be the essential regular controls that everyone uses on Roblox every day. The only difference is maybe it's an obby. Maybe it's a simulator. Maybe that's why those games work so well. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Because the simplicity is insane. They don't change the controls. They don't add first-person shooting. You know what I'm saying? All they add is just the simple controls, and then the game just works with those controls. And I think that's why they're so well at being multi-platformed. And I think that's why Roblox essentially, you know, favors simulators so much and all those type of other games.
Gives them that leeway to go forward because they know that they're going to work across the whole platform. They have game passes that ticks a box for Roblox. They can make money. It's a go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a classic case of, you know, they always say to work smart, not hard.
Work hard.
That's a good phrase.
Think it's one of those, and to probably bring it back to the motivation thing earlier as well. For example, you know, the quick side project I did, Cube Puzzle. I don't think I made it console friendly, but again, like a quick project, you don't want something to be massively overcomplicated because you'll lose interest long before you ever make it mobile compatible and things like that. I think it's right that the top games are those same style of games that everyone complains about, the simulators, the you know, it used to be tycoons and obbies all over the place on the front page. It's because they're simple. You can get a game out there quickly, which then means you can spend your time on adding things like the game passes, upgrades, you know, winter updates, Easter update, all those kind of things you can do because your core game is simple but effective. And you're not having to worry about all these technical aspects.
And Roblox will favour them for events because they are performance-wise quick for mobile players. So they'll favour them for events like Easter events they did in the past and things like that. They're a win-win for Roblox because Roblox want a game that is simple to play, not simple in how it looks. They're simple in gameplay and it can run across platforms. I mean, if they tick those two boxes, and the final one is I hate to say it, the money. I mean, and that's the three lucky. If you land all three, you're on the front page. Yes, there's other factors, but they're the main ones that Roblox are looking out for.
Yeah.
It's just a shame.
I just want to notify you guys that the podcast will essentially be ending in about just 2 minutes from now. So, any last things that you have to say? You know, just any short.
Actually, I have a question.
Just one last question.
BanTech, do you actually enjoy Roblox development?
Absolutely. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. It takes up a lot of my time. I mean, it's one of those things where obviously starts as a hobby. Now, yes, there is the money aspect. And it means that I don't have to get a part-time job, which is very, very useful, particularly during times like now with COVID, where getting a sort of a physical part-time job probably quite hard. So I obviously enjoy it and do it to be able to pay bills and things like that. But in terms of, you know, I told you I wasn't that much of a train fan, but I work on Stepford County because it's fun. Like, I think I could probably make a bigger game and get more money if I went off and just abandoned it and did something else. But that's not the only reason why I do it. So, you know, the community, the fact that I'm working on it with friends and the fact that you get to see a completed product and see people enjoy it and things like that, all of those are just big motivators and reasons why I'd be quite hard pushed to go beyond the Roblox platform, even if it does have quirks and shortfalls. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you, BanTech, for speaking with us.
It was a pleasure.
It was absolutely a great time. I
No worries,
absolutely loved that whole conversation. That was great.